Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series live from the Netiv Zoom room down in Houston, Texas. Always a good meeting. Last week, Rabbi Ingber really was a little racy. I think it was great. I shared it. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say it got into some more political material, and I actually had my brother-in-law who's in Vancouver asking me questions about that, and I shared with him the video from last week, and so I invited him to come and check out the class on YouTube today, and hopefully he does. But let's just jump right in and say hello to Rabbi Ingber. Shalom, Rabbi Ingber. You're live on the air.
Hi,
I'm going to turn the
everybody.
class over to you, sir.
Good to see you all. Good to see you all. Okay, so I don't know, Dan, should I go racier this week or less racy? Okay, we'll try to figure it out. I think I'll go racier because the world is in a really, serious place. So I want to first give you the really, really good news.
Alexa, stream front yard camera.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, to say something, Rod? Oh, so here's the really, really good news. Everything's going as planned. It's all good. It's all good. Now, again, this is the deepest concept of how we have free will, and yet God has a plan. It's one of the deepest things. Not a push from my book, but in my book I do talk about it in one of the chapters. But it is a very, very deep concept of how we have free will, and yet God has his plan, and he makes his plan happen. And so things are happening in a certain way. And I want to explain it to you all a little bit today in the current events issues. I want to explain it from the Jewish perspective, from the non-Jewish perspective, to understand this, because I know some people. I have some people that are Jewish and some people that are not Jewish that look at the news and they can't believe what's going on. Has the world lost their minds? People, basically, 70 years after the Holocaust, screaming out to kill the Jews again. It's like, it's like, so now you have a new excuse. Oh, it's Zionism. Okay, but these are all old stories. So I want to explain a little bit today some of the things that are happening in world history, in current events, how this is relevant for Jews to understand and for non-Jews to understand, and kind of flesh out some of the things I spoke about last week and make them a little more comprehensible on a new level. So let's start. The Torah portion is called Toldos. Toldos. These are the generations of Yitzchak, Isaac, okay, who will now give birth to Esav, who is the father of the Western world. As I've shared with you once, the deeper meaning that Esav is, he's Rome. He's called Rome. And Rome became taken over by Christianity. It became the Christian Empire. Even so much so that the name Esau really is the same name as JC, the same letters, which means that there was a Jew who became the forerunner of the Roman Empire and that philosophy of the world. And the parsha talks about Isaac, Yitzchak, and his son Esau, and Jacob, who becomes the continuation of Yitzchak's mission in life. Okay, and he becomes the father of the Jewish people. And Esau becomes the father of Rome. Now, there really are, there are a lot of nations in the world. There's 70 nations in the world. And if people would keep in their lanes, they wouldn't have wars, because God did give a land to all the 70 nations. The world nations are all mixed up now, unfortunately, because they don't know what they are. But everyone has their space. But we talk about really three nations, of which are the roots of all the nations. That's the Jewish nation. There is the Western world, which is largely became Christian, and then the let's say the Arabic world, which is largely became Muslim. Now, and the dynamic here is a dynamic that we have to understand, because there between these three players was a struggle. There was a struggle when Abraham had two children. He had Yishmael, the father of the Arab nation, and he had Yitzchak, who was going to be the father of the Jewish nation. There was a struggle. Yishmael said, I am the center and you're my assistant. And that's why the Arab nation still has, instead of saying that there was the offering of Yitzchak, that Isaac was offered by Abraham, they have a different text. They want to say that was Yishmael. So that was a battle that happened between Yitzchak, the father of the Jewish nation, and Yishmael, the father of the Arab nation. Then there's another battle that happens in this week's portion, which is between Yaakov, the father of the Jewish nation, and Esau, who becomes the father of the Western world, becomes the father of Rome. And there was that battle also. Who is the chosen nation? Now, the battles of those players still play out today. I want to, for a minute, just talk about, in this week's parsha, which is the story of the children of Yitzchak and his continuity, which is Jacob. The parsha starts, these are the descendants of Yitzchak, and it'll go through that his descendant's going to be, the one that's going to continue his legacy is going to be Jacob. But it is connected to the end of the last week's Torah portion, which talks about Yishmael, the father of the Arab nation. And it says there in the text, it says, Al kol pnei echav nafal. He dwelled, he expanded out, and he had many, many children, and they all settled. But the word nafal means also to fall. And we have a tradition that's brought by the sages that before the Mashiach comes, the final exile, the final step in this process will be when the Arab nation rises to tremendous strength. And then when that goes down, that will usher in the time of the Mashiach and the time of Yitzchak's descendants. Now, I saw something that I think is fascinating here, that maybe some people saw, that there's a guy, he is the son of the head of Hamas. I don't know if you see this guy speak. Very fascinating. So I heard him speaking a couple days ago, and you have to understand his background here. This is a person who was groomed and raised as a terrorist by the leader of Hamas. And even when he was put into jail by the Israelis, what happened was he was supposed to be a double agent. I heard he wanted to be a double agent and say he was working with the Israelis, but he was going to report back to Hamas. But what happened was he saw that they started torturing him and other people in the prison of their own people. And he said, wait a minute, these people are out of control. And he started seeing things very different. Okay, very interesting. So I heard him talking about the Jewish people. And I was impressed with certain things. He started saying, he says, when will you realize this is what he said, the smartest people, the most creative people I've given the world more than anyone else. And he starts going off like this in this discussion. When will people realize this? And realize the strangest thing is that the Jews he's talking about are the Jews that from a traditional Jewish perspective are considered to be the least developed. They're considered to be the people that he's looking at. Like he never met, I doubt he ever met a great rabbi, a great sage. The people that he's met are not necessarily considered to be our greatest people. They're considered to be our lower people, the people who are not keeping the mitzvot, keeping the commandments as they should. But yet he saw in them something that was very great. And I thought that was very fascinating that he saw that. And this really, it really strikes on one of the issues now that's happening in this whole discussion, which is bizarre. But the Jewish people, the Israelis, are bending over backwards not to go and to kill what they're calling innocent civilians. And any honest human being in the world will look at it and say, yeah, there's no one's ever done this. No one's ever done this. And the question is, should they be doing it? I mean, honestly, in terms of Jewish law, doesn't make any sense to me, because many soldiers have been killed already. Why are they killed? Because what they're doing is they are going in a war with their hands tied behind their backs, trying to show how moral they are and to not hurt someone. Now, there's two problems. First of all, nobody wants to hurt anyone innocent, God forbid. War is the worst thing in the world. Abraham, when he went to fight in the war in the Parsha 2 weeks ago, he did it because he was so angry that a person could actually fight a war. The Jews don't want a war. It's absurd. The whole thing is crazy. People, they want to be. They would say, "Okay, you want part of the land? We'll take part of the land." They wanted to. No one in Israel wants war. That's not the way Jews function. But what happens is that it's thrust upon us by people that say they want to destroy us. So now the Israeli army is doing somersaults and flips and make sure no one's hurt. Now, there's two problems with that. First of all, in war, unfortunately, innocent people get hurt. That's what happens, because especially when they put all of their hospitals, they put their terror centers in front of people using human shields. That's one problem. The second problem is I don't really know what to say. It's a very hard question, but if you ever saw the films of the people, that the greetings that they give to the terrorists, the fact that people voted for Hamas in a democratic election 20 years ago and said this is the people we want, I don't know what percentage of the people are part of this terrorist thing and what percentage is not. I don't know. I mean, yes, certainly years ago, it was more than 50%. And from the pictures, it seems it's a lot more too. I'm sure there's some innocent people. I'm sure of that. But this whole flips and turns that the army is doing to not to only make sure they're killing someone that they haven't advertised, hey, the guy's a terrorist, is bizarre. No one's done this in the world. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? So on one level, I don't think it's the correct thing. I don't think it's Jewish law. I don't think it's maybe it's like, Christians talk about turn the other cheek, which is fascinating because no one does it. Which Christian nation, point one out to me that they were attacked and they said, okay, here's the other cheek. It's never been done. No one does it. Because and if that's people's values, that then Christians could do what they want to do. In Jewish law there's a law. If somebody comes to kill you, proceed and kill them before. That is a law. It's not an idea. That's what a person's supposed to do. So it's not that, and that's what some people miss in America who their brains have been overcome with incredible lies and stupidity. People who say, well, this is revenge for a terrorist attack. It's not revenge for a terrorist attack. The people who did it are saying, we want to continue doing it. They still have missiles they're shooting constantly over our house. Thank God, most of them are being deflected. But 2 days ago, as you probably heard, Hamas sent another terrorist mission into Jerusalem, and they got stopped on the way there. They killed one soldier and they wounded another 4, but they were going with explosives. So it's not just an isolated incident. The people saying we want to kill these people. Okay, so I was saying to myself, why are these Jews doing this thing where they're trying to be so moral? Are they just trying to prove themselves or something? I don't know what it is, but I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I think they're wrong. The IDF is doing this, not the way that people are saying it. They're wrong because they're not being compassionate. They're being too compassionate. They're endangering themselves. That's not the right thing. But there's a place in them where these people who don't know what is the right measures, they don't have the Torah to know, okay, this is war, they're trying to kill you, you're allowed to kill them first, you should kill them first, trying to kill you. They're genuinely good people. Do you know the people that were killed in this by the terrorists were all the ones that were the biggest left-wing supporters of Gaza? That's who they were. They were like, the reason why they knew every place to go was because they were hiring these people to give them work. They used to drive them, they used to do all these things to try to help them, and those are the people that killed them. So the reality is that when I hear this Hamas, the Hamas son of the former terrorist, appreciating what the Jewish people are about, and I realize he is talking about the people that in the Jewish world we don't consider, on the whole, them to be the learned, righteous people. They're regular people who are trying to do good. These guys are trying to do good, and they may have a mistake in their head, but the mistake in their head is not to kill people; it's to try to save people, even at their own expense. Which again, I think is wrong, because I don't think you're not supposed to do that. But they're coming from a good place. They don't want to hurt anybody, and that's a fascinating thing. And then when I heard him talk, I couldn't help to think about the deeper idea here, that it says that Yishmael, the father of the Arab nation, before he dies, says he did tshuva, he repented. And it says that when it came to bury his father, Abraham, he let Yitzchak go first because he realized Yitzchak was the one that had to be the light unto nations. And I hope that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing if the lesson that this guy was able to learn was able to permeate and get out into the Arab world. It'd be a wonderful thing. Because here was a guy who was the lowest of the low, really indoctrinated into murder, and he's had his eyes open. And it's funny, I don't know if you heard him speak. I don't think that he I don't think he captures the heart of the American people, because he's a tough guy, right? If you hear him talk, he's like, you know what you're talking about? And he's like, and the truth is, that is what it says about Yishmael. It says Yishmael is going to be a para Adam, a wild person, a wild person. And the text says that if you read in the Bible, it says in the Torah, it says that Yado Bakol Yad Kol Bo, he has his hand in everyone's thing. He's pushing the Arab nations are pushing certain things, and they're fighting with a lot of people. But it's not necessarily, it's a bad thing when it's out of control, which it is now. But if they can learn from this person who seems to have really seen something and understand something, that would be a wonderful thing for the world to get away from this path and start to make some sense, which is what it says is going to happen. What's going to happen is that eventually. Eventually what's going to happen is that Yishmael will realize what the situation is, maybe through tough times, unfortunately. And when they realize that, then they can be part of what the Jews are supposed to bring to the world. And that's really the Jews have to. What's supposed to bring into the world is to be a light unto nations. And this is what I really wanted to tell you before, when I said to you, things are really going exactly where they have to go. Let me explain this to you, what I mean by that. What I'm going to tell you here is very. It's going to sound a little bit wild, but this is the reality. We were talking last time about anti-Semitism, and I explained to you some factors of what causes it. And I explained to you various ideas. And last week I talked about the idea that there are people that really are fighting a battle against God. And they subconsciously understand the Jewish people are the embodiment of a certain mission. And that's what Hitler said. Hitler said the hatred for the Jews was because they put two scars on humanity. The scar of the circumcision, which actually meant to have the person's desires not out of control. And the second one was the scar of the conscience, the moral conscience. And that was what Hitler opposed. So there are people who don't realize they're fighting God when they hate the Jews, but that's what it's about. But I want to tell you today another piece of that puzzle that I didn't tell you before. This was written by a great sage he wrote a treatise explaining this idea in the early 1900s. He wrote a long description of what the Bible, the Torah talks about the great persecution of the Jews. And he wrote in Germany, he wrote, it's coming. This is before Hitler. This is even, I think it's before World War I even he wrote this. It's coming to Germany. The Jews are going to be massacred in Germany. Now, why did he say in Germany? Germany was one of the places where the Jews were actually starting to be given some kind of rights. In Eastern Europe, they weren't. In Western Europe, they were. They were starting to be given some rights. Maybe they can go to school. Maybe they could this, maybe that, because they were not allowed to. In Europe, there was the constant persecution of the Jews. They couldn't go to university. They couldn't own land. The only job they could have was money changers, which is an interesting fact, which is, people think Jews are money lenders. They always know money lenders because the Christians forced them to be, because for some reason they adopted the Jewish law of not taking interest. So when it became a mercantile society and you needed to lend money, so they forced it upon the Jews, which was not, Jews didn't want to do that job. It was the worst job in the world, because when people couldn't pay you back, they killed you. But he said that there's going to be a Holocaust in Germany. He wrote that, I think it was in early 1900s. And he said, you know why? He says, because today I was walking in the streets of Germany and I heard a Jew say, Berlin is our new Jerusalem. In 1850 started what's called the Reform movement, which means that the Jewish people kept the Torah the way I do, the way any religious Jew does for thousands of years, going back to Abraham. All Jews kept the Torah the same way, thousands of years. In 1840 or 1850, there began a movement in Germany called the Reform movement, when they wanted to reform Judaism. Now, what was their main motivation? Their motivation was, they said, if we start to act more like the nations of the world, maybe they'll stop persecuting us. So they started to try to ingratiate themselves into the German society. And they started trying to do things to be more like the Germans. And when this rabbi heard a Jew say, Berlin's our new Jerusalem, he says, that's not going to work. There's going to be a Holocaust here. And that is a principle. Whenever the Jews go to a place of another country, not the land of Israel, and they start to adopt the culture and mores of that place, the nation itself rejects them. It happens all the time. And that is what's happening right now. So I want to thank all of you anti-Semites for sending all the Jews to Israel, because that's what's going to happen. And that's what's happening right now. I already have online a few people from my community here who already plan to come to Israel because they see it's over for them in America, and that's the plan. And that's okay. Now, all of you righteous people out there, you people that are righteous and Noachites and righteous non-Jews who don't hate the Jewish people say, wait a minute, so what about us? Well, it's good news for you, because God looks into the hearts. There's a famous question you could ask, a very philosophical question. I'll give you a question from the Bible. It says that God told Abraham that the Jews would be slaves in Egypt or in foreign land, he said. So now the Egyptians enslaved the Jews. Imagine after 120 years, Egyptian guy, he enslaves the Jews, he dies, he goes up to the heavens, and God, and he goes in front of to have a trial. Was his life meaningful? What did he do, and what's his reward or punishment? And they said, you did a very, very, very bad thing. You enslaved the Jews. So he says, well, but I didn't do a bad thing. You wanted me to do it. It was a divine decree. So what happens? So the answer is no, because God didn't tell which individual to do it. Every individual has the ability to choose. And what happens is that God makes it that from good people, good things come out. If somebody has a positive view, they'll learn, they'll hear. They'll learn the very basic things about this whole story. This whole story is one of the greatest lies in history. The Jewish people have been there for thousands of years. I mean, you go to any archaeological site, you find Hebrew coins, thousands of years old. I mean, what is that people don't understand? This has been the ancestral home of the Jews. Both the Christians and the Muslims agree to it, right? And most of the world agrees to it. They read in the Torah. They read in what they call the Bible. So what happens is some good people, good things come out. Someone is negative things come out. So what's happening right now is really fitting into the global plan. The global plan, and I want to say something here to explain something, another deep thing that Rod asked me a couple of weeks ago. And I explained in terms of the relationship of the Jews and the non-Jewish world, how it has to work. And the Jews have to be what's called the internal mechanism, the pneumius, and the nations of the world have to be the external mechanism. And what that means is like this. If the Jews get their act together and then the enemies of Israel will be forced to disappear. And that's what's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, that is happening right now. What's happened now in Israel is that any divide that was amongst the Jewish people, which is a very bad thing, God does not like when Jewish people are not united, that has gone away. The Jews are more united now than they have been in a long time. The Jews, the non-religious Jews, do you know that now the soldiers who were not religious are asking to wear the tzitzit as their life protection vests? They're just off the shelves. So they have to get new tzitzit because every single soldier, every single person wants it now. The Jews are all turning their heart to God, and that is what it's about. It's not about the bad people who are bad messengers, not like you all who are beautiful, wonderful messengers, but the people that are the bad messengers, they're just pushing us where we got to go. And that's what's going to happen. And that is the process. So it doesn't justify what they do because they have evil in their hearts and they are the ones who are the bearers of that bad message. But the real root is, in terms of the Jews' responsibility as the internal mechanism of the world, we have to go and to act in the superior righteous way, not the way they think. Oh, the Israeli army is acting according to all standards of anything that's been done in war, is insanely beyond the pale, and to the point where it's ridiculous. I don't know if they're doing, as I said, to appease the Americans or appease the other people, or I give them the benefit of the doubt that they just don't know and they really don't want to kill anybody, so they're endangering their own lives to try to protect people, which is very noble, but it's not the right thing to do when you endanger yourself and other people in your nation when you're being attacked. But okay, but I'll still give them the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to do it from some good root, which is, by the way, which is the truth. And I just understand something. I mentioned before the Reformed Jews. and they are unfortunately very, very they're misinformed. They're misinformed Jews. But you want to know something, and this is something that's so funny when you look in America. People don't understand what to make of the Jews. Like I don't understand. Are they left wing? Are they right wing? Why are most of them like Democrats when the Democratic Party is like so anti-Jewish now? Like what is that? Well, the root of it is like this. You should understand. People need to understand this. In Jewish law, they would not support any of the agendas of the far left these days at all. Not at all. Those that keep Jewish law, it's completely contrary to that. However, the Jews that don't know the Torah, they have this desire to do what they think is good. And they want to help the downtrodden. And they want to bring the immigrants in. Like, I don't know if you saw this thing with Elon Musk, where I don't think he meant anything bad by it, but somebody made a comment about the Jews supporting immigration of people that hate our country, whatever. It was a very terrible thing. Elon Musk first wrote, yeah, he's got a point, and he's right, and then he clarified what he meant. It's true. There are very strong left-wing Jews who are unfortunately extremely mistaken. The root of it is they want to do good. They know they were persecuted, and they know that, but they got something wrong in their head. They don't have a Torah. But when the Jews start to go and to return to the Torah, which is a natural process that happens every time. This is not new. It happened in Germany. It happened in Spain. It happened in Egypt. It happened every place. Every single place the Jews went, there was a process. First, they rose up in the society. They contributed a lot to the society. They helped make the society a wealthy society, and the society turned on them. That's an old story. And one of the reasons that happens is because then the Jews have to remember we don't belong there. We belong in the land of Israel. That's where we belong. We belong in the Jewish way of serving God. And that's what we have to do. And that process is what is unfolding right now. Now, I want to go a little deeper with you. And I'm going to tell you a little bit. I don't know how this is going to play out. I told you that. I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't know if this is going to be the next third world war. I don't know. I don't know if it will be. But I do know a little bit about the end of the story if it does become the Third World War. So I'm going to share with you some of the highlights of the end of the show. So hopefully everyone knows what's be on the right side of history. So it happens also in this week's Torah portion. You have Esav, who I mentioned is called Rome. It's called Rome in the Torah. It's called Rome. Edom, even though it didn't exist yet, but it's called Edom, which ends up being Rome, and becomes the father of the Western society. And at the end of this week's parsha, what he does is he goes and marries into the family of Yishmael, the Arab nation. He marries the daughter of Yishmael. Now, he did that for a very particular reason. And the reason is not so good. The reason is that he wanted to be able to fight against his brother Jacob, who is the father of the Jewish people. And he figured by aligning with the Arab nation, that would give him a certain strength and a certain philosophical approach from the two dynamically opposed realities, the right and left, let's call them, to be able to fight against the Jewish people. That's why he did it. And if you look in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Yechezkel, in chapter 38, it describes there the wars that happened at the end of history. And there are 3 times that it says they try to come and fight against the Jews. And there's different understandings. The Chavetz Chaim understood that he was alive after the First World War, but he said there's going to be a Second World War. He died a little bit before that. And then the Third World War would be the final one. And what happens in that war is there is alignment again between the Arab nations and some of the Western nations. And they try to come against Jerusalem to fight Jerusalem and to destroy Jewish people. And there will be tremendous miracles that will happen in this. And one of the phenomenons that happen in it is amazing, which is discussed. The Malbim discusses it in Ezekiel. But the coalition that they have, starts turning on each other, right? Like you saw those signs, like queers for Palestine. It doesn't work, right? Because they'll throw them off the roof, So the coalition that they have between the Arabs and the Western people start to fight each other at some point because they realize, wait a minute. And that's what a lot of people have said this to Americans to realize. When Iran says death to Israel, they say Israel's the little Satan and America's the great Satan. That is what they believe. You have to understand that. The Crusades were not fought against the Jews. The Jews were killed in the process by both the Christians and by the Muslims, but the Muslims were fighting the Christians because the Muslims, by definition, believe that the Christians are more of an infidel than the Jews. The only reason they hate the Jews more now is because the Jews are in their backyard. And this is just what I'm telling you now is basic. This is very basic stuff. You can go ask any honest Muslim will explain to you that I've got the terms in Arabic, but there are terms for lands that have become Muslim under Sharia law and lands that are soon to become and lands that are going to be for later. And so America, the goal of certainly of radical Islam, I'm not saying every single person, but is that it will also eventually under Sharia law, but Israel is closer to it. So that alliance that is going to happen is going to then come to fight against Israel, and then in that process, many miracles happen, and then the line starts to fall apart. There are statements that we have that would be a very frightening reality that talks about a war that is last 9 minutes, which was written a very long time ago, which would be only could make sense when it was written as a war that could cause that kind of damage in 9 minutes. You know what I mean? So hopefully we don't go that way. This doesn't mean it has to go this way. The world could get its act together, but what happens is that this is what you're seeing right now. That's why I'm telling you this, because the alliance you're seeing between Hamas, a terrorist group, and the people of the Western world, it's incredible. It's truly incredible. It really is literally, as the prophet is discussing, of them trying to unite in their hatred of the Jewish people. But, ladies and gentlemen, such good news is that it's not going to come to fruition in the way they want. They'll come into the fruition in the positive, wonderful way. It's going to be rough. I can't tell you it's going to be easy. And I can't tell you this is going to be that war. I don't know. We should try to do what we can to avoid it physically and, more importantly, even spiritually by the righteous acts that are happening right now and the uniting of the Jewish people and all turning their hearts to God. Even the secular people, that's why I tell you, it's fascinating what's happening in Israel. The secular people their heads are exploding now in Israel. It's crazy. These are the guys who were talking about Oslo, two states. They say they want to kill us, but they can't mean it. And their heads are exploding right now because they say, wait, they really do mean it, and so what's happening is it's causing a lot of the Jews that have fallen out from Judaism to actually rethink their position. So it doesn't have to happen through a cataclysmic war. There's other ways that could happen, God willing. And hopefully that's gonna play out. But even if it does, the end result is good for all of those that hang on to the belief in the Torah, belief in God. It's called the birth pangs of the Messiah. And it's called Chevle Mashiach. Another term for it. Chevle Mashiach is the birth pangs, but the Chevle is also called a rope. And the sages tell us, like, when you have a rope and it shakes and everything gets thrown off, you got to hold on to the rope. Holding on to the rope means that you hold on to what is true. And all of you here, thank God that you're amongst those who are supporting the Jews' idea of returning to their homeland and through to their Torah in loving, pleasant ways. Sometimes people hear that, sometimes they don't hear it. Right now, the Jews are hearing it loud and clear from those that hate them, and their response is the response that Hashem always wants. So there's a very deep Talmudic thing. I'll get into it, but the concept is, when you're afraid and you turn to something, that shows where you're from. And when the Jews are woken up by this experience, they turn to God. That's their source, and that cognition is what brings the blessing to the world. And that's what this guy was saying. This Arab son of the Hamas guy, he said, "Don't you understand what these people are bringing to the world?" And he doesn't even understand. I'm telling you, the people that he knows are not the people. I mean, I'm sure they're wonderful people, but they are not people that are enlightened with Torah. He doesn't. That's not the people he's hanging around. He had some people, but he wasn't. That's not the people he's hanging around with. He hasn't met those people that are on the higher level, and yet he saw something. How much more so for the rest of the world? I told you many times, if people understood what the temple in Jerusalem provided for them, not only would they have not destroyed it, they put 24-hour guards to protect it. And that's literally what's happening right now. There is an alignment going on. The Western world, some of them are aligning with the Arab world to fight against the Jewish people and against God. And it's not going to work. But what it does is it reminds the Jews what they got to do, and they do what they have to do. And some, like yourselves, they understand, no, I don't want to be part of that. I want to support the mission, but I'm not doing it by being a hateful person fighting God and the Jewish people, God forbid. That you understand that. So what happens is that there's this process going on. And the great news is that it's playing out as it has to, and God willing, it's going to play out in the most peaceful way, and the way that the world will not want to fight against God and recognize what Yishmael, the father of the Arab nation himself, recognized. He recognized it before he died. It's incredible. It's incredible. He recognized and he said, I've been fighting something I shouldn't have been fighting my whole life. And he was fighting it. And the reason why he fought it was because he couldn't stand the idea that Yitzchak, Isaac, would be before him. It's hard. It's hard. And it's not, again, I always tell you, it's not a question of a person being a Jew has to be very, very, very humble. The person who gave us the Torah, who was the one who brought the Torah down, was Moshe. It's not an accident. His trait was humility. Not an accident. The only way to get Torah is humility. Because when you think it's you, then you're your own Godhead. That's not what it's about. So the Jewish people don't, the people that are righteous among Jewish people don't think themselves we're to be light into nation means to be a conduit to bring God's light. And the system, as I said, is very fair. Somebody who wants to convert can convert. Someone doesn't want to, doesn't have to convert. It's but when what's happening is people right now are fighting against God. That's what it says. The enemies of the Jewish people are the enemies of God. And so what happens is that Yishmael, who was the father of the Arab nation, he was fighting. He was really fighting it. He was a wild man. It was a para Adam. He was blowing people up. He was a warrior. And then he said, "This is wrong." And now we got this Hamas guy I'm listening to, the son of the Hamas person, saying, "Whoa, I really have my head screwed on wrong. And maybe more people will see that. Maybe even, I don't know, but maybe the IDF's, I think, mistaken approach, but their approach to go to the nth degree, to endangering themselves even, to many people, some people thought, I mean, some people maybe will wait now, will say, wow, these people are incredible. I mean, I don't know. I think so. Unfortunately, the Arabs are taking advantage of it, and they're using these people as human shields, and endangering their civilians to kill more Jews. But that is the process we're in. So, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you here, it's a rough time. It says that the times before Mashiach, it says that, the Talmud says it should happen soon, but the rabbis say that it's a tough time to see, because things get really messy. And it says it happens when the world, it's an amazing, the Talmud says it happens when the world, the values of the world get so bad that precedes the coming of Mashiach. I mean, that's pretty much happening right now. The values of the secular world are gone. And as I said, I mean, and really, and it's such a short time, like the past just 60 years, 50 years, like it went from whatever representation of morality to there is no morality, there is no God, there is no anything. And so that does precede this coming of Mashiach. The coming of Mashiach is the idea. Jews understand their role. And when the nations of the world will recognize that you don't want to fight that, you want to be part of that. So you all who get it, great. You have your portion, that God will repays everyone for what they do. Jewish, not Jewish, everyone gets paid according to their actions. And all of you who support that mission, you will get what you deserve. And those who don't, and they are filled with hatred, they'll get what they deserve also. But also, although they're going to get what they deserve, they're just pawns pushing us to do what we have to do, which is to serve God properly, and that's happening. And when that happens, then everyone will be able to get the light that has to be spread out to the entire world. Those are my thoughts. I'm open to ideas and comments. Dan, was that more racy or less racy than last week? I don't know.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I know that we don't base everything on anecdotal evidence, but you had mentioned, Rabbi, that more young men are wanting to wear tzitzit and don tefillin, and I mean, so there's amazing revival going on in the land, actually all over the place. But Matisyahu, a very famous Orthodox rapper that's kind of left off the derrick for a while. I saw an interview yesterday where he told his friend that October 7th changed him. He was in Vegas to do a concert and he heard the news and he had to go get on stage next. And he was like, what? Like, he's so dumbfounded that all of this happened and that the anti-Semitism was on such a rise. He says, I took my dog for a walk a couple of days later and I came back to my house and told my wife, I'm going to shave my head, let my pilots grow out. I'm putting tzitzit and donning my tefillin. I'm returning, and I'm going to return with a fury. And
yeah, it's good.
No, I know. I'm getting chills thinking about it. So if he's
I was
how
happy.
many?
It was funny because I wrote a song. I wrote a song like a couple of days ago, and it was a song about the Ani means, the different things of I believe. And I was hoping to have different people sing it. And I said to someone, I'd like to have Matisyahu sing it. And someone said, I don't know if he's really where he's at right now.
He's coming
And
back.
so we're gonna Matisyahu, if you hear this, we have an offer for a new Ani Mamin song. We got hopefully Yehuda Solomon singing on it, and a bunch of other good musicians here, and you're invited to sing on it.
Yeah, I think you ought to send him an official thing because I think
I will.
Really cool.
Well, who knows? Maybe this video will reach him too.
But the point is the greatness going on underneath the surface is much grander than any of us can even say right now, because we just don't know the beauty and the miracles that are taking place. It is taking place, folks. I mean, you're hearing miracles right now coming out of Gaza that are like, wow, okay, that's an amazing miracle that took place. So
yeah, it's true. It sure happened. I thought in my own neighborhood, a missile landed next to the synagogues on Simchat Torah. Next to there were hundreds of people there. It didn't go off.
that's a miracle. They need to
Yeah,
chronicle these
it
things.
literally landed there in my neighborhood. I couldn't believe it. It was like, the Iron Dome gets some, but I guess doesn't get all, and didn't get this one. And it landed where everyone was. And they were all singing and dancing and for getting ready for Simchat Torah for the holiday. They were doing the Simchat Torah. We danced with the Torah, and they're dancing, and it didn't go off.
You hear about the soldiers that were advancing toward an area. They knew it was getting ready to get pretty treacherous. As one was at the point man getting ready to go in, a dove flew down and landed on a tripwire. They couldn't see it.
Wow.
And the dove landed, and obvious there's a tripwire because he's floating in space. So they avoided and realized they if they'd have tripped that, it would have leveled the whole block that they were on. It would have obviously killed them as well. But like that is just. How about the other one I heard today? Where
I didn't hear that one. And
Yeah.
the dove is compared to the Jewish people, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. They had
Because
three
dove has one love, and that's not them.
They had 3 tanks lined up. The guy says he went in for his morning brief. He walks in, and everybody's pale in the tactical operations center. And they got video up of 3 tanks that are dilapidated, ruined, smoking, flaming, and they're all like white faced, like, what are we going to do? And pretty soon they get a call, and it's one of the commanders from one of the tanks who said, "You're never going to believe what's happened." He says, "One of our tanks broke down. We got out of the vehicle because it was one of the troop transport." And so the 12 guys got out. They started looking at the vehicle. So the 12 guys split off and hid. Well, the other 2 groups were like, "Hey, we got to get out, find out why they're getting out." So they all got out, and boom, the tanks were hit and no one was killed.
Wow. Baruch Hashem. Thank God.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah. It's happening. It's happening. And again, but it's the reason why I brought up this guy, I found his name Yusuf, the son of the terrorist, is because you see the people saying the dumbest things and such hatred, and you're like, wow. And you can't believe it. You lose your you lose your trust and your confidence in humanity. And then you see a guy like that, and you say, okay, well, everyone's going to see it in the end. The question is, what side people are going to be on. So people seeing the miracles and but that's really what's happening, and that's what I said to you before. This is the process. So no, it's not a new process, and that's why I'm saying that things are playing out. I don't know. It was funny because they had that Abraham Accords was an interesting process. Unfortunately, it got sidelined now. But it's a very interesting process, which was very smart to sidestep the terrorists and to try to create a relationship with the Jews and the Muslim world, and that has a lot of potential, because eventually the world will be back to a place of truth and goodness. But the way it works is, as the world goes into a crazier tailspin, and it looks like everything is going wild, that is the precursor to the time of clarity. Yes. That's why it's called the birth pangs of Mashiach, Messiah, because what happens is, when the woman is about to give birth, that point of transition does not look good. It looks like the person's dying. If you didn't know any better, you would not think life's coming to the world. You would think death's coming to the world. And that's the way it always is. Every transition point has to be a complete break from what it was before. So right now, the world has hit a real low. And if that low wasn't low enough, then now you have all these people on TikTok and Facebook and, supporting terrorists. Like, wow, where did this world go? You know,
Rabbi,
Malk on full display. Yeah.
Rabbi, I
Yeah.
got a couple questions from Lara on. She's watching on YouTube. She first asks, "Where can we find your song?" She's asking for where she can find your music, and a question that she has: Can you please explain the name Gaza, its roots, etc.? She says she already knows the answers, but she wants the audience to hear it, current and future. So,
Okay. So first of all, where you can get my songs, you can go on YouTube, type in Karmi Ingber, Karmi, Karmi Ingber, Ingbr. The name of the album is Sapphire Sky, but Sapphire, I spelt it Safire. Sapphire Sky. Why they call it Sapphire Sky? Because the tablets that were made out of sapphire. So one of the songs there we talk about that. The album is in English. The choruses are in Hebrew. I think I have a translation there, but if you send me a message, I'll tell you what the words mean. And because a lot of the choruses are from Psalms or other thing, but the verses are all in English. And yeah, so go to YouTube. Go to, I think it's on Apple Tunes, on iTunes also. I think it's on Spotify also. Karmi Ingber, Karmi, and then you have to have Sapphire Sky, Safire. Sky, SKY, and you can get that there. And go do that. That would be good. That would help me too. Write a nice review if you like, because also the new album we're working on right now, and the new album is very, very exciting. I'm very, very happy. The new album is coming out really, really good. We got some great musicians playing on it. Just fabulous, fabulous. Those who heard of the Moshav band, very famous Jewish band, I got those wonderful singers playing with me there. Great musicians. Really, really good stuff. On that album, I have the Sapphire Sky. Actually, we ended up using the Israeli Philharmonic on 4 songs. Again, it's not classical music. It's old time rock and roll. Sound like the Beatles, but the Beatles, they used the symphony orchestras too. So I also wanted to do that. So we did that on 4 songs. So listen to that, enjoy that album. Also, but now that my wife's always told me to promote. You can also get my book if you want on Amazon. It's called Where the Heavens Kiss the Earth. Mystical Insights of Personal Growth. Right. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a play. That's very good. And the book is called Where the Heavens Kiss the Earth, Mystical Insights of Personal Growth. And there, that gives a very, very clear, the book is written for people who have no background, but it's a deep book. So people that are very learned will gain a lot, and people that are not, I make everything very clear. And we talk about the deepest concepts. Talk about free will. We talk about fate, destiny. We talk about body and soul. Afterlife. We talk about go through all the things I mentioned tonight about free will and God's divine plan. How does that work? And I also give exercises there on how to take these concepts and make them accessible. Because if I talk to you about free will, so let's say purpose. Purpose is the first chapter, finding our purpose. Well, that's great, but how do you start to do that? So I give some exercises to sort of tune you in to make these concepts part of your life. So that's the book also. It's too bad I kissed the sky, right? David, we're gonna have fun playing when I get to Houston. Yeah, we're booking that right now. So those who want in January, we're gonna be, God willing, in Texas and doing a concert and playing and doing speaking. That's that. Okay, so thank you, Lara, for that. And then now, Gaza is actually called Aza. Aza in the Torah, it's called Aza. Aza was the inheritance of Judah. It's in the portion of Judah. The word Az means strong, strength. So Az is a concept of being, of power, of strength. That is the word. It's not, Gaza is just the English translation, but the Hebrew word is Aza, from the language Az, strong, and it is a it what? They hold your book up. Oh, my wife wants me to hold my book up. My wife's a big Tzedekis, and she always says, "Why don't you tell people you wrote a book?" Because I don't like to, but here's the book if you want to see. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I don't like self-promotion. That's why, 10 people have read the book, but it's a good book, so enjoy it. Yeah, that's Gaza. So it's amazing. Gaza is a place that was the tribe of Yehuda. We saw in the Torah portion Abraham going to Gaza. He lived there for years. Abraham lived in Gaza. And it's totally a shame, the whole Gaza story, because I told you it's a coastal area. It's on the beach. You could have taken those billions of dollars that the EU gave you and America gave you, and you could have made yourself a beautiful resort town, and you turned it into a hellhole. So it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. People have love in their heart, want to do good things. They do good things. People have hate. They build hate. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and
Well,
it's really unfortunate.
It puts a new spin on the movie Wizard of Oz now.
Right. The Wizard of Oz. All right, the Wizard of Strength. I wonder if they thought of that. Very
Anybody
good.
else? If there's not, I'm going to play you out on some of Rabbi Ingber's songs. Okay, Cheyenne, where's Cheyenne at?
Please.
We weren't ignoring you. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Hi, Rabbi. Thank you.
Hi.
My question was kind of like going back into the history you were talking about. I know, like, growing up in America, we kind of have this mindset like it could never happen here, right? And I'm sure Germans probably thought the same thing as Jews were having rights around them. Americans have rights around them, and we saw it happen in Germany. And so obviously it could happen in America, where it seems like the common trend is often that Jews get expelled, but this time they'd have a homeland to go to, like you were talking about.
Right.
So if this were to happen, what would that mean for like the final redemption as well? Does that automatically trigger it with so many? Because that's almost the rest of like Jewry that would be showered into Israel, or is it still more of like the process?
Well, it's part of the process. The clearest sign, the Talmud says, that we're in the times of the Mashiach in that phase. And you got to remember, this is written thousands of years ago. The clearest sign is, now today, when I'm going to tell you now, it might not freak you out because you're used to it. But Israel, after the exile, was a wasteland. Contrary to what people tell you that the Arabs were flourishing, they were not flourishing here. This was a wasteland. Okay, as I said, Mark Twain came here. He said, "I never saw such a wasteland." So the Talmud says the greatest signs the Mashiach is close is when the land of Israel will again give its fruits, and that's what's happening. When they came here in 48, there was malaria. They did all these things. They would drain the swamps, and all of a sudden, the land of Israel is starting to come. Now, as the Jews come, the land is absorbing them because the land is the land of the Jews. It is meant for the Jews, and again, it's funny because even in like this is sort of people who read the Torah and don't know how to read it, there's a lot of stories of wars and they don't know how to, but there's always the line of truth and kindness, which the Torah starts with kindness, when God, clothes Adam and Eve, and then he buries Moshe at the end of his life. It's about kindness. And so there is a place that, even though it's the land of the Jewish people, there is a way that a non-Jew is allowed to live in the land of Israel. He's called a Ger Toshav. He's allowed to live in the land of Israel. There's certain requirements. One, he has to keep the 7 laws of Noah, and he has to accept the Jewish sovereignty over the land. And then there's a law you have to help support him, keep him alive. And that should be the process also with the Arabs who want to live in the land of Israel. But the land of Israel is the Jewish homeland. It's always been the Jewish homeland. It'll always be the Jewish homeland. The Jews face Jerusalem for thousands of years. Wherever they are, they all face Jerusalem. All the prayers go up from Jerusalem. If you're in Jerusalem, if you're in Israel, you face Jerusalem. If you're in America, you face Israel, because you can't get as exact. If you're in Jerusalem, you face the temple. If you're in the temple, you face the Holy of Holies. And that's the way thousands of years all Jews have been praying, even in the exile. That's what we do. It's not, I didn't make it up. We all do that. When an Arab goes to pray in Israel, he faces Mecca. That's where he faces Mecca. That's why, there are Arabs who say, what are you talking to the Palestinians? What are you talking about? There is no mention of Jerusalem in the Quran. And I told you, Mecca 700 times, Medina 350 times, Jerusalem. How many times Jerusalem mentioned in the Quran? 0, because it is not a holy place for the Arabs. It's not. Okay, it is for the Jews. Even the Dome of the Rock was built as a tribute to the King Shlomo's temple. I forgot who built it, but so when the Jews come back to the land of Israel, that does make a cosmic change. And as a matter of fact, it is so close, because once most of the Jews in the world live in the land of Israel, it triggers a new level of the process. Because there are certain laws that will go into effect that are not in effect now until most Jews live in the land of Israel. But it's very close already. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many years, but especially now with all the anti-Semitism, people leaving France, Canada, I always like Canadians because they're very nice, but their passivity has now done them in. Because they're just like running roughshod over them, having applause for Nazis in their parliament, and Trudeau is whatever this guy's doing. So Canadian Jews also are probably figuring it out, and European Jews that figured it out a while ago, and Americans are figuring it out. So as the Jews move to the land of Israel, when it's a majority of Jews, which is very soon, so that will actually trigger the process of the return even more. There will be certain there'll be certain laws that will go into effect. The laws of Shemitah, which happen now, but they'll happen on a biblical level, and other things that will happen. So those things are going on. And then what's going to happen is the Jews are going to find the ashes of the red heifer, which we actually, those of you in Houston who've heard of the famous Vendel Jones apparently found the map to find the ashes of the red heifer. And so he claimed he knew where it was, because we have the ashes of the red heifer is the only way to become fully spiritually pure, that the Jews can go up to the Temple Mount. Right now, there's only certain places they can go, certain places people can't go. Unfortunately, people go up there. They shouldn't go there unless they go with a rabbi who can tell where a Jew can go, where a non-Jew can go, where a Jew you're not allowed to go every place. Jews can't go every place in the Temple Mount, because we don't have the ashes of the red heifer, and death is in the world, and therefore we're not on the spiritual level of purity that we can go up there. But once we find that, and we will when God wants us to, then that is going to also be a process that's going to trigger a new level of purity that will usher in a new age. Or there has been, actually, I think in Texas, they found some red heifers that they have sent to Israel, which have arrived, but they have to watch them. They have to be a certain age and not develop any black hairs on this red heifer to create the ash of the red heifer to do the purification process. So anyway, all these things are processes that happen as the Jews return to the land of Israel, and it's happening. Jacob asked me last week, and it was interesting about the people that, and I want to clarify is the people that the Jews seem to oppose Israel. They're not opposing Israel. What they maintain is that we should not have set up a non-religious state. That's what they say. And I think most Jewry doesn't agree with that, but all Jews understand that Israel is our home, and that's our home. It's like it's very different. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but you think about it. I mean, I grew up in an Italian Jewish neighborhood in New York, and like, and my Italian friends, they would be like, "Yeah, maybe I'll go visit Italy," but nobody was like, "Oh, I have to go back to the mama land to Italy." It was like, it wasn't, it was, yeah. Now I'm in Brooklyn. I was in Italy. Now it's like, what is the thing? But Jews, for thousands of years, it's all about Israel, because it is the land that God. I want to explain what it is to you a second to understand. It is beautiful, and it has an incredible climate, and it has an amazing, and it will be more beautiful. It's gotten more beautiful, and it will be much more beautiful as the Jews come back and as Mashiach comes. But that's not the point. That is the outgrowth. The point is, it is a place that you can experience God most clearly. And that's why the Jews are supposed to be in the land of Israel, because they're supposed to be in the land where and that's why sometimes you have to understand, sometimes there's challenges in the land of Israel, because if you work for the king and you sweep the streets, you need to keep the streets clean. And if you don't, that you're not doing a good job for the king, for this. But if you're in the palace and you don't do the job in the palace, you gotta, shine the king's crown. You don't do it. Whoa, that's a problem. So in the land of Israel, the responses happen fairly quickly, because those that can see and read the signs see it. We do the right thing, this happens. The wrong thing, this happens. You see things very, very fast, and that's what's happening when you see this brutal attack of these savages. So it also, what it does, like I say, you have to deal with the external reality. But what the Jews are doing here is prayer, is introspection. It's saying, okay, God runs the world, not Hamas. Not the Biden, not Putin, not Netanyahu, not anybody. God runs the world, and God says, you do what you got to do, and I'll take care of your enemies, and I'll take care of the people who are trying to hurt you. And that's what's happened for thousands of years, and it's going to happen again. It's happening now. So the land of Israel and the Jewish people are completely intertwined, and that's what the word Yisrael means. Israel is Yashar to Yisrael, straight to God. That's what it means, literally. It is the land that you see God in the world, straight to God. It's the clear manifestation of God's providence in the world, and that's why we Jews cannot go to Uganda. They can't go to Florida either. No, sorry. There's only one place the Jews can go, and that is to the land of Israel. So that's the good news. And as I said, it's good for everybody. It's good for everyone. And I implore any Arab who's hearing this to also be part of the process in a good way. In a good way. Let us bring God's light in the world and make the world a better place for everybody. Okay, everybody. It's late over here. I will see you next week, God willing.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Beautiful message today. I'll make sure I share it abroad. And have a wonderful week. We're praying for your safety, for you and your family. And Lara also said, thank you, dear Rabbi, Dan, Rod, and Rebitz and Ingber. We appreciate you so much. You give us your time, your wisdom, and most importantly, God's word. Keep shining the light of Torah for us, the nations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Bye.
Rod, thank you so much for hosting the Zoom meeting. And please let us know for next week if we're on, Rabbi. And
yeah.
Any final
We're on
words,
for next
Rod?
week, God willing. That's the plan.
God willing, we're on for next week. All right. Excellent.
Yep.
Rod, any final words before we shut down our live broadcast? No, you're good. All right, folks, we're going to sign out for today. Thank you, Rabbi Ingber. We pray for you and all Israel. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. Bye for now.
I love this song.
Enjoy.
I am. I love it.
Great.
My favorites under Spotify. You have a momish voice. Beautiful. I am. I'll let it run to the end.
Well, the Holy One, he loves you like a father loves his son. And if you understood that, your world would shine. Then every vision would sparkle bright like water dancing in the light. And each moment would taste just like wine.
It's not coming out so good. Listen to the original, guys. Sounds better. This